Hey, everybody. My name is Malik Foster, one of the co-hosts for the Counterpoints podcast. I welcome you guys to join us today. Sam, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody, and I am your second co-host. We have a third co-host, but he is away on vacation. But my name is Samantha Adams, and as Malik expressed to you, thank you all so much for joining us today for our podcast. We have a good topic. You will hear my dog in the back. He is an unofficial co-host. That's Chino. He doesn't care who's talking, what we're talking about, or what's going on. He's just going to have it back. So anyway, the topic that we have for you guys today is about dating. Well, not necessarily dating. It's about relationships and some of the ups and downs that take place and the endurance that's required in order to maintain those relationships, and also to the effects that it has on a breakup. So we're going to start off. Malik found this interesting clip. He's going to play it, and it pretty much talks about dating and how dating sets you up for divorce. And it's an interesting perspective. So we're gonna talk about that in just a second. Malik is about to show it right now.
All right, let me know if y'all can hear it or not. I just want to make sure. Yeah. So let me go ahead and play that.
Yeah.
Current dating is just practicing for divorce. What's that mean?
It means you're learning the tools and skills required to recover from a breakup rather than how to maintain a marriage. So you are learning how to make somebody jealous, how to move on quickly, how to meet somebody new, how to play hard to get, how to play games, how to essentially ensure your relationship will not make it through the tough times. You're not learning how to sustain and maintain and how to debunk some of the behaviors in yourself that are toxic to the relationship. You're just learning how to categorize every ex of yours as a narcissist, but not about what behaviors or traits in you attract or even are narcissistic. So I think the current dating climate is purely, how do I move on? How do I protect myself? How do I not get too attached? Catch flights, not feelings. That culture is what we're being taught.
All right. So it was definitely a lot that she said in there. One of the main things I wanted to point out is basically she was talking about the skills to ruin a relationship, how we're taught, how society is teaching us, like, how to move away from a relationships, how to not have a lasting, enduring relationship. There's a lack of endurance, lack of going through the struggles. She was talking about a lot of the dating games, the catch flight, stop feelings, like always going away from a consistent long-term relationship, even when there's troubles and issues. So I think, that's how the dating market sets up. And then if people do eventually want to get married, it's definitely set up for divorce. So I definitely agree with that, what she was saying. Sam, did you want to add a little bit to that?
Yeah, I kind of disagree to an extent.
Okay.
I do believe that it shows people how to play games and all that stuff, like she said, but I think dating also teaches people what they don't want, right? And so in order to find out what you want, sometimes you have to go through it by finding out what you don't want. And so the playing games, the having the attitude of catch flight, not feelings, and how to move on quickly, it teaches you, if you don't want that type of lifestyle, you don't want that when you enter a marriage, the things to avoid in order to not have that. I do believe that it's very, very possible, and it probably happens more often than it doesn't, because, there are successful marriages, and a lot of those people dated before they, got married. So at the end of the day, I agree to an extent, but I disagree as the result. I don't think it necessarily teaches people how to, maintain a divorce. I think it teaches people what they don't want so that they can find a long-lasting relationship that maybe ends up with marriage. It also creates a space for intention, right? Because understanding that if you're going into dating and into a relationship with the intent of getting married or having a long-term relationship or whatever that looks like for you and your partner, then you shouldn't be out there doing the things that you would be doing if that's what your intentions were not like. So If I'm intending on getting married, I'm not going to be over here playing games. If I'm intending on getting married, it's not about me trying to move on quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, some people do that because they feel like, oh, if this one thing goes wrong, I'm gone, right? A lot of times that does happen. I saw, matter of fact, I saw something today. This girl, she met this dude online. He seemed nice. She had just moved, and so she had just bought a bunch of furniture. And so she had this thing where she had a conversation with him where she asked him if he would help her put some of her furniture together. And he said he would, but because they didn't know each other like that, she offered to pay him some money. Like, yeah, I'll pay you the money to help me put this furniture together, because she felt like if he came over there and she didn't like him and it didn't go like there wasn't a connection, at least nobody left empty-handed, right? She got her furniture built and he got a couple dollars out of it, which I don't see anything really unreasonable about that, right? Everything seems fine. Then he comes over, he puts the bed and a desk together, and they have amazing conversation. He seems like somebody that she might want to date and continue to, see and spend time with. And the feeling is mutual. And then he asked for his money, right? And she said she would sell it to him, but then like she cut him off because he asked for the money, and she thought that was tacky of him. And I thought it was weird of her. Like, how do you feel like it's tacky that y'all had an agreement and he's expecting you to uphold your part of the agreement? That has absolutely nothing to do with relationship. That has everything to do with the fact that y'all had a business agreement.
Well, I do think, a lot of things have changed, right? I think society has an impact on the dating and the divorce, as we mentioned, because if we look at the numbers, it's very high. It's almost above 50%, if not already over 50% right now. Currently, we'll have to look at it again when statistics come out. But last time we checked, it was at half. So that's not a good number, right? And I do think times have changed, right? Men and women are definitely different. And I think from, a man's perspective of what we feel like women want, they want a lot of traditional treatment, but they don't want to be in the same position as the traditional ladies. I know we did a podcast episode, y'all can go check it out, about if traditional roles would be able to, more traditional roles or settings would be able to help relationship last longer as well. We did a podcast about that. So y'all can go check that out. It's our YouTube channel, kind of Ports Podcast. My shameless plug for today. But I do think that does play a role, Sam. People, men and women are very different now, and women tend to want traditional treatment, but not be, just to stay at home. They want to work, they want to be in profession, business, all that. And men necessarily don't want to just do everything in terms of a financial aspect as well. They want to share due to economic reasons, cost of living. It makes sense. So things do have to shift due to just the current economic climate that we currently live in today. So I think a lot of people are having a hard time adjusting and adapting to that. I think that's one of the issues that people aren't talking about, like how things have rapidly changed with, social media, just the economy, all these different options. That's another thing as if played a factor, right? People feel like, or they do in some cases, or many cases, have a lot of options. A lot of people are within their reach now. We're like a global society. So I can be talking to people in my city, a different state, different country, and I can actually go visit them, interact with them either online or physically. So that makes a big difference in the dating market. And, you're saying like, oh, I don't have to put up with these bad behaviors. I can just go here. I can go there. So it makes a big impact. I don't know how you think about that. What do you think?
I do think that the internet has changed dating a lot. Not necessarily just the non-traditional role aspect of it. I just think it's changed dating because you make yourself available to more people, like to a much broader scope of people, people that might not necessarily be located in the same state or city that you're in. And so it gives people more quote unquote options, right? And so I do think that that definitely has an impact on dating. But, you know, just going back to the clip, I don't necessarily believe that it's always going to be something that's dating is always going to set people up for divorce. Because like I said before, intentions matter, influences matter as well. You know what I'm saying? They definitely matter, like the internet. But, you know, as people graduate, like let's say they not graduate, they elevate or they pretty much level up in a relationship, right? Let's say they're dating, they find somebody and now they're in a relationship, right? I'm kind of segueing into the next portion of what we're talking about. And that goes to love, right? Because once you find yourself in that relationship and you both love one another, you know, we found another clip. It was very interesting. And I remember actually talking about it, hearing a discussion about it on the app, on Tagged app. And it was about men loving harder than women or more than women. That was the discussion on the app. But we found a clip where a guy talks about men loving more authentically than women. And he gives a real, like, I was completely against it when he made the statement, but when he gave the breakdown, I thought the breakdown was really, really interesting. And so Malik is getting ready to play the clip for that. And we can talk about that next, but it is very, very interesting, a very interesting perspective about love, right? Because women are so emotional, right? And obviously love is an emotion, you know, women often think that, no, women love harder, women love more, women do more to show their love, blah, 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 blah. When in actuality, I don't know if it's necessarily love more or love harder or whatever, or do more to show love. It's really just everybody is different. Men and women are different. They express their emotions differently. They express their love differently. What they contribute and provide is always going to be different, not only ranging from person to person, but also from gender, like going from a narrow scope to a more broad scope. Women are going to express the way that they love way differently from men. And I think a lot of times women have a hard time recognizing that women show love differently than men. You know what I'm saying? And so, you ready to play the clip, Malik?
Yeah, I'm ready. I was just going to add on to what you were saying that, like, I think that's another issue that you point out. That's I think very common with most people today in Western society, that we just feel like, you know, we don't understand each other very well, right? We don't understand how each other works as well to complement each other as well. We're just saying, hey, you should just be this way because this is the way I like. But instead of focusing on what makes us happy and focusing on how that person can complement where you're lacking or compliment you, you want to try to change them into something that they're not, that would fit what you totally want. Right. Mm-hmm. So I think that's very important. But yeah, I got the clip up. I'm just sharing my screen here. So can you see? I hope I'm sharing the right screen.
Yep, you are.
Oh, okay.
More authentically than women.
Huh?
Oh, and this is what I mean by that.
You said say that again.
I said I think men love more authentically than women. And this is why.
I can agree, but go ahead.
Women are in love with love.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And because of that, I think you guys are wired to stick anybody in that spot. You can make him fit. You guys are socialized from little girls to fall in love with the process, the pageantry of love, the courting phase and the dates and the, you know what I'm saying? He put his hand on my thigh and we walked down the aisle and all that stuff. On the flip side, when a man figures out that realizes he's in love, that's not a happy experience. He's like, God damn it. Because that is a responsibility.
He's telling the truth.
Now, because again, our two jobs are provide and protect. I love her means that I'm willing to die for her. That's not part of your responsibility. Right. So we're not going to be as flippant or as generous with that love. Plus, we're not socialized to fall in love with the whole process and shit like that. I think.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting perspective. The only thing I didn't really fully agree with is how women are, taught from a young age to love the process. I don't think that's it. I think women are taught that if the process goes well, then it's reasonable to love. You see what I'm saying?
I do think, Sam, yeah, I agree. Like, they're not taught, but I think it is kind of more programmed or marketed about the process and about this is how, that fairy tale stuff, Disney stuff, that kind of stuff, as opposed to a man. It's more like you find love, this is your job, this is the expectation, as opposed to women. There's a whole romance. It's more beautiful. It's beautiful on the woman's end. As the man end, it's not as beautiful. At least that's what I think he was trying to get at. Go ahead.
No, I understood what he was trying to get at, but the thing about it is it's not about falling in love with that process, right? That process goes to vetting. You see what I'm saying? It goes to vetting. It goes to vetting and seeing whether or not that man is serious about you, whether or not he just wants something from you or he desires to have you. You see what I mean? Because remember, if you're, as a woman, if you're talking about a traditional role in a relationship, as a woman, you are supposed to be that man's helpmate. You are supposed to allow that man to lead you. You are supposed to allow that man to protect you and to guide you, right? So that means you are falling within that person, right? You are not necessarily losing your individuality, but you are conforming to who that person is, that man is, right? And in you conforming, you have to be able to, ready and willing to, that's where submission comes in, right? And so this person is taking you, your life, your livelihood, and carrying it a place. And so in doing that, you have to know whether or not they are truly for you, whether or not, they're really going to take you where you're willing to go, all of those things. And so that part of it is you're looking for things. You're looking for, if he's willing to do those things for me, then that's how I know he's showing me that he cares or he loves me. Because if a man doesn't want to have to do that, then he's not going to. Right?
Do you agree with him, though, Sam?
I do agree with the ideology of women do, because we're such emotional creatures, that we do love. The whole fantasy of the fairy tale aspect of it, that's one of the reasons why you find some women that are delusional, and why you find women not appropriately vetting. And like he said, just sticking somebody into the spot. It's like, this is what I want. He did that. He checked off the boxes. I'm putting him in that spot. Not about whether or not he's really the right person.
Yeah, because it goes into a lot of fantasy to me, like a lot of stuff that's not always realistic expectations. Maybe the exception to the rule, not the norm, as opposed to when a guy falls in love, is more like a realistic, this is your job, this is what you got to do, this is the expectation set.
But that
as opposed to a woman, it can be this whole movie storybook type of thing that's marketed to you guys, to
but
women.
It's also,
and that's not marketed to men.
But it's not, aside from the marketing and the all of that, it also goes to who women are and who men are. Women are emotional creatures. Men are logical. So you are pulling on the heartstrings of a woman, whereas with the man, he's looking at it from a logical place.
Plus, see what I'm saying? Women to buy your stuff, but that's another
right. But the thing about that's the marketing aspect. But when you're looking at what it is you're doing in a relationship, and when you're talking about love, women feel, right, and men feel too. We are groomed to feel feelings, right? We are groomed to be able to identify, this is how I feel. And everything is always about feelings. We're groomed to think with our hearts most of the time, which is where the delusion comes from, which is where all of these fantasies come from. Whereas with men, it doesn't mean that men can't be delusional. It doesn't mean that men can't have fantasies and all of that about
love. They just amplify, the marketing just amplify what's already there. It makes it even worse than what it really is. Like it makes it more exaggerated.
Men are so logical in their thinking, they analyze their emotions from a logical place as well. You see what I'm saying? Right. Whereas with women, once it's your emotions, you're not analyzing your emotions from a logical place. You're feeling your emotions. And that right there has a lot to do with some of the differences, right? That's why women and men, when we were just talking about it, you're speaking a different language, and sometimes we misunderstand one another because you're speaking from a place of from your mind, and she's speaking from a place of her heart, and those things don't always mesh or so you got to have to find ways to properly communicate those things. And so I agree with him. I think that it is more authentic in a sense because it's not his goal. It's not his goal to just, oh my God, I love, but it's also not his goal to not say that. It's not the goal to be one way or another. It is what it is. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And even he's intentional about it. Like, I want to be married. I want to have a family. I want to be in love. You can want those things even as a man, but your approach to it is going to be totally different because of the fact that you're using your logic in it. Whereas with women, it's like, okay, he's cute. He got a job and he held the door for me. Let's go.
Yeah, right. I agree with that part. And also, like, how it's more authentic is because, men aren't really pumped up with all this fluff stuff or stuff that's not always realistic or, ideal for your specific situation or just what most people get anyways, right? Because I feel like all that fantasy, romance stuff, that's not what most people get. So, but men, it's not really promoted us to get some unrealistic thing. It's like, hey, this is what you're going to get. This is what you should expect. This is your job. And if you fall in love with the person, that's what you're supposed to be doing. It's really straight line, just how men think. But for women, I guess it's kind of along the lines of what y'all think. It's kind of all over the place a little bit. It's really like this big old
circular,
thing.
right? Like
we talk big about old thing that encompasses some realistic stuff that can happen, but also some stuff that's like, that's a little bit of a stretch. Right. It's like fairy tale stuff like that. So, I think there's other reasons behind marketing and like that, but it's also a detriment too, because some people really believe like this is what I should get. And even though they haven't done anything that warrants that, like, I feel like a lot of women feel like, just because you're existing, you deserve a certain level of treatment. No, you got to work for everything you get. Like, you might have to meet the right guy, make that right guy feel good. You got to put in some work.
That all goes to the whole upbringing, the whole ideology that the woman is the prize, right? Doesn't mean that the men can't be, right? Let's just be clear that in no way.
Yeah. It doesn't mean
that's not what I'm saying. But what it is
just focusing on
women are brought up that women are the prize, and so that's where a lot of entitlement comes from. So I think that has to be unlearned and rethought a different way.
And
like
it's
you
not
are
just
valuable.
a lady's job to receive. They have to give, pour in. Not necessarily always a financial aspect all the time, but you have to pour in something. Because there are things that men need that aren't necessarily financed, especially the ones that are rich, right? They still need stuff.
That's men are not robots. Men are not robots.
They're not ATM machines.
Right.
They're human beings.
That leads to the segue into the third portion of this podcast, and the third and final is more so, okay, now you have dated, you have fallen in love, and now you are married. Right. And it's about whether or not happiness is required in order to remain loyal in your marriage. Now, earlier Malik was talking about, the divorce rate and how the divorce rate is so high, and it's like 50%. And a majority of women a majority of those divorces are initiated by women. And when you ask many of them if it's not because of infidelity, or it's often because of infidelity or finances. But all of that boils down to whether or not somebody is happy, right? Just not happy. I'm just not, and the thing about it is a lot of times people leave their relationships when they're not happy. And sometimes they're not happy within themselves. And sometimes they're not happy in their relationship. But happiness is not gonna always be there. Life happens, right? Life be lifing, things go down, and you're not always gonna be your best self. Right. And so, in my opinion, you gotta love through that. You gotta love through that, because happiness will and can return. It's up to you for it to return, right? And I think a lot of times people place the responsibility of their happiness on other people. And you have to be responsible for your own happiness, you know?
Right,
Now,
Sam. I was using the example when we were talking off camera that like your family, right? They make you happy sometimes, sometimes they don't. But it's not like it's not like you just don't leave them like, okay, I'm gonna excommunicate myself. Some people feel that way. That happens sometimes, but for the most part, you don't. So I think if more people treated marriages like that, as serious as that, I think it would be a better result because you want a person to add to your happiness, not be your only happiness. Like you're my happiness. That should be a piece of your happiness. It may be a big piece, it may be an important piece, a crucial piece, but it can't be the only piece because you always want other things to make you happy because your happiness starts with you first. And then from there's other things that make you happy, right? So it's not like, oh, okay, this relationship's the only thing that makes you happy. Maybe some food makes you happy, maybe going to the beach or whatever, hanging out with friends, stuff like that. So it just can't be one thing that you're heavily relying upon because you might find yourself unhappy in the marriage, unhappy in a relationship, and then you want to call them quits because maybe you're facing some tough times, there's some difficult, maybe miscommunication issues, whatever the issues are. And a lot of issues can be resolved, right? Through communication, through talking, through effort. And, if you do that, you might be able to solve some things, work things out. I understand, today's age is different than yesterday's age, right? So that we got to keep that in mind too. But 50% is definitely way too high, in my humble opinion. But I do have a clip where a lady explains a little bit more about being unhappy in a long-term relationship or marriage, so that will be able to shed some light into this, and then we'll give our reactions. Let me pull that up here. One moment here. I'm just gonna try to refresh it. I have a little computer issue here. Okay.
got it.
Yeah. I'm gonna switch over. I'm gonna have to refresh it, but I got it. It's coming up. All right, can you see it?
Yep.
I know you can't hear it, but yeah, I just have to refresh real quick. Because it auto plays Instagram, and it's just weird like that sometimes.
Yeah.
And this guy hit on me, right? So he said, hey, you married? And I was like, yes. And he said, you happy? And I was like, no, and and the reason why I said no was because, one, I'm brutally honest, and two, I was not happy at the time. But what does me being unhappy have to do with whether or not you have a shot? Here's the thing I realized. A lot of married people don't know how to be unhappily married and still not walk away. If you could learn how to be unhappy for a minute, your marriage will last. Because the goal in marriage is not happiness. The goal is to build a lasting relationship that withstands the ebbs and flows of marriage, of relationships.
I agree with her.
Okay. Yeah. We'll talk about points, not is. So yeah. I guess you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, I think she does make a good point. Like, hey, the goal of marriage is for it to be a lasting relationship. That's where I kind of agree with her. Where I disagree is you don't want to be in a prolonged state of unhappiness, right? So I do have a modern viewpoint and opinion on that. Like, you don't want to be like, man, I've been in this marriage for 10 years, unhappy, depressed. No. So, like that mean like no, you don't want to be in that situation. But if it's like a couple months, maybe a year or something, and you've tried everything, you put in some work, you tried time, you tried everything, you put money, resources, effort, time, you put everything you had into it, and still no changing, no improvement, then I can see, filing for divorce. But I think most people don't try to do that. I think most people look for it now, like, man, I've been unhappy for a little bit. They're not looking at, inside, what are they doing wrong? How can I communicate to this person to help me with my happiness or add to my happiness? is it really that person's fault? They don't do any self-reflecting. It's always, it's a lot of blaming issues. Like sometimes we like to blame, oh, I'm not feeling good. I'm not having a bad day. So that's an excuse for me to maybe overeat, excuse for me to do this, excuse for me not to do these tasks. I don't feel like it. But at the end of the day, it's not that person. It's up to you. It's your fault. It's not these outside factors that you pretty much come up with in your head on reasons why you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I think a lot of it is blaming another person, even though the onus is up to you to do the best you can to try to make it work, because you can control you. You can't control the other person. So I think you definitely need to do all you can before you try to make it end. So what do you think, Sam?
I think that I think that a lot of times people they're not on the same page when they enter marriage. And I think that's one of the reasons why some people go in for happiness, whereas some people go in for having a lasting relationship, for having a family, for having those things. When you go in on the same accord, then whether or not you're unhappy for a time is not going to be the end all be all. I'm not going to say it's not. It doesn't matter, because your happiness absolutely matters, right? And I agree with you, Malik. If you are unhappy in a relationship and nothing is, if you're doing all the changing and the other person is not, then eventually that's how people start to grow apart. You see what I'm saying? They start feeling ways that they didn't feel before, things like that. I do think that in going through relationships, with that being the goal and keeping your eye on the prize, she talked about ebbs and flows in relationships. You're going to have that. You're going to have times where you don't want to talk to your partner. You're going to have times when you're angry with your partner. You're going to have times when things are great. Everything is fun. You guys are constantly laughing and you're super in love. There are even going to be times where you feel like you are falling out of love with your partner. But if the goal is to go ahead and fight through those feelings, then you go ahead and you fight through those feelings. That's where a lot of relationships, when you go and you talk to people that have been married for a really long time, that's the thing, that when they made the commitment, it's about commitment, right? When you say that you've committed to somebody, it doesn't necessarily mean that, oh, you're not being faithful or you're being faithful. Commitment means I said I'm doing this, period. This is what I'm doing. Nothing's stopping me. Or there's only these couple of things that are going to stop me, like abuse or infidelity or whatever, right? It's not unconditioned. It's not always going to be unconditional. But happiness, if somebody is not doing enough to make you happy, you got to figure out what you need to do to make you happy. Because like I said before, happiness comes from within. You are responsible for your own happiness. You can't put that responsibility and expectation on somebody else. The thing about happiness is that somebody in your life can only add to that. You feel me? Like they're going to add to what makes you happy. They're not supposed to be the one. You can't allow your happiness to be dependent upon a whole nother individual, because the minute they take that away, what are you left with? And you're the only person that's responsible for you 365 days a year, 24/7, right? So I think that right there plays a huge part in it. Like, because she's talking about her own happiness. Yeah, she was very open with a stranger. I wouldn't have told him diddly squat. I would have told him to mind his business, or told him, yep, I'm happy, now leave me alone. But, she was honest, right? And I think the other part of that story that I thought made it interesting was how she talked about, just because I'm not happily married, what makes you think that you are the one I'm gonna tear my relationship down for? Like,
yeah, that was a very interesting point, because I feel like
I commended her for that. I commended her for that, because that goes to the expectation of men, right? And the delusion of men, and how there are so many men that believe that just because, I gave you space to speak to me, I gave you, what's the word I'm looking for? Access to speak to me, that means that I'm going to throw everything that I have away for you. And just because I've given you this much space doesn't necessarily mean it's yours. It means I just gave you that much space. That's all that means. And
Right.
so,
I thought it was interesting. Oh, go ahead. I'll let you
and I
finish.
think that it also is a great, it's a great display of her loyalty to her marriage and to her husband, despite the fact that she was unhappy in the moment, right? Because what if he was somebody she may have been interested in? She still made the choice because she had made a promise to her husband. This is what we're doing, regardless. So
Right,
whatever's going
right.
on
You
over there,
know,
it's going to fade. And
they
I
are
think more
vows
people,
for a reason, right? Like,
right?
I
And I think,
mean, sickness and health, the good and bad. Like, maybe part of the bad is you being unhappy for a certain amount of time. Of course, like I said, I have a more modern view. You don't need to be depressed for years and years and decades. But,
right.
you know,
I agree with that.
you got to put on
I
some
agree with that.
effort, though.
You shouldn't be like so bad off where you can't like where it's just getting worse,
But some
right? And
people
it's
will say, I
getting,
tried everything. I'm like, did you really? Did you try doing what
well,
he or
no,
she
I
wants? You
just
know?
a moment of truth. I have been in a relationship where I have literally tried everything. I've tried everything, and so and I wasn't happy. And when it starts to put you in a space where it's changing you at your core, and that person is not doing anything about their behavior and how it's affecting you, at some point you have to start considering whether or not that's emotional abuse. So that's the reason why I say don't put yourself in a position where you're emotionally being abused or being abused in any way, right? That's why I say it has to be some sort of caveat. There's no such thing. I mean, there is a such thing as unconditional love, but at the same time, it doesn't mean that you have to embark on a relationship unconditionally, because there are things that you should be able to be in a relationship, in a space with a person where they're going to respect you and they're going to give you the
Because
things that you need, because there's an agreement, right? It's an agreement between two people, and you got a hold of your end of the bargain. What were you going to say, Malik?
I was going to say, like, okay, if you decide to be in a long term relationship or marriage or whatever you want to do, um, who are you going to give the most leeway to if it's not going to be that person that's decided to commit their life to you? Like, of course they're going to mess up and make mistakes, but who else is going to get that leeway? So everybody who makes a mistake in your life or whatever, you're just going to be like, yeah, I'm done. Like we can't have that standard. I just think you can have thick skin with your significant other, but of course you want to keep in mind, like, if this is depressing you, harming you, being negative, and you're trying to communicate, you're trying to do the best you can, and like Sam said, she tried everything, it's not working. Then it's like it's understandable and reasonable for you to leave, but just be like, no, he's doing this or he did this, he's a narcissist or she's this or she's that. Sometimes you just gotta communicate and see if they're trying to make the effort to change. Of course, it might take some time because they're used to their certain habits. But if they're willing to change, you might be able to work with it. But if they're not, then you have to revisit the idea of maybe I should get out of here. So I just think people should take time before they just run out and leave instead of trying to stay and endure and try to make things work.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think, and that goes to the solutions, right? I think that starting from dating, you have to have an intention. If you want to have a successful relationship, we talk about manifestation too. You got to manifest that thing, and you have to be wise. You have to exercise in your wisdom when you do that. So you go in with the intention of having a successful relationship. You do the work. Excuse me. You do the work to have a successful relationship, which includes like communicating, respecting one another, understanding that everything is not going to be perfect all of the time, and be willing to remain loyal to the commitment that you made, right? Like, I think those are some of the core parts of the foundation of that relationship in order for it to be successful and even for it to grow. Because us as people, we're going to grow, right? Nobody stays the same. Well, some people stay the same, but for the most part, people don't stay the same, right? And so that growth is what gets you somewhere. And as you communicate with your significant other, your person, your partner, you got to be able to say, hey, listen, this is what I'm doing. This is what I want. This is where I want to see ourselves going. And then, typically the man will do that and the woman will say, yes, I'm with it. Or how about we add this or add that or take this away or whatever. And y'all come to your agreement and you figure it out, right? At work, anybody that's got a job, you don't quit the very second something goes wrong, right? Because you got bills to pay, right? You got to eat, and so knowing that there's certain things that you're going to put up with, those things they're not like that all the time. You may not have to do that one task all
Or
the
do
time.
some sort of cost benefit analysis. Like, okay,
right.
This is the cost of me leaving. This is the benefit of me leaving.
You don't,
like a pro versus cons.
My dad used to always say, you don't cut off your nose to spite your face. And so what that pretty much means is it doesn't mean don't respond in a meaningful, well thought out way, but it does mean don't be hasty.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I think that's really what it is. It's about not being hasty. And I think people have to be willing to push through some more often than we do. Otherwise, the divorce rate wouldn't be so high if they did. And also to have those intentions, like to have a long-term relationship, if that's what you want. If you just want a short-term relationship, go have you a short-term relationship with somebody that wants a short-term relationship. Don't go get in long-term relationships with people that don't want that. If y'all be equally yoked, stay committed to the things that y'all are committed to, right? And be mindful about, your deal breakers. Because if somebody is into things that you're not with, then guess what? Eventually, that's going to be the very thing that causes you to leave. So you really got to be mindful about those things too. Well, did you have anything else you wanted to say, or I can go ahead and just move to the...
You can go ahead. I said everything I wanted to say. Go ahead, close this out.
So, first and foremost, I'm gonna do this a little bit out of order. I'm going to do our book of the month. Our book of the month is called The Souls of Black Folks. It's by W.E.B. Du Bois. Please go ahead and read it. It's a really good book. Talks about the different perspectives of Black people from back in the day during slavery time. And you kind of see how it relates to people's perspectives today. So The Souls of Black Folks by W.E.B. Du Bois. Please go ahead and check it out. And also the Black Business of the Month is called The Harlem Chocolate Factory. Two young ladies that went to Spelman University, live in New York. They have a chocolate factory over there on it's in Harlem. It's on, what is the street that it's on? Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard. So y'all make sure you check them out. The holidays are coming up. So please check them out and support them. Support those young ladies. And then I actually have two motivational quotes to close this out. One is, it says, endurance is not just the ability to bear a hard thing, but to turn it into glory. And that was by William Barclay. And the other one is, everything we want to do in life requires discipline. And like strength, flexibility, and endurance, it can build up over time. And that was by Laird Hamilton. So I think that those two quotes go to the topic for today. And I really think that people have to remember that you got to push through. You got to push through. You have to be intentional, and you have to use your mind. It can't always be all heart, and it can't always be all brain, but you have to use it both. And that's how you create that balance, and you're able to use it as a force to push you through times when things are hard, right? Through the ebbs and flows of relationship. And so with that, I hope that everybody remains encouraged. I hope everybody has an amazing week. Please make sure that you like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Our socials are going to be at the end. You're going to see them. And also, too, if you want to ever be on the show, or if you have a topic for us, please go ahead and hit us up. Let us know, and we will be more than happy to have you. We'll also be more than happy to discuss the topics that you have. I'm trying to think, am I missing anything? Oh, yeah. And also, too, make sure you tap in with us every Wednesday at 8:30 on Instagram. I'm also on the Tagged app. My name on the Tagged app is Sam I-Yam. That's SAMMIYAMM. So you make sure you tap in with us there, too. And on Wednesdays, 8:30 Eastern Standard Time for What's Up Wednesday, where we talk about all kinds of things. So, Malik, I don't know, do you have anything else?
If you guys want to connect with me, it's Malik Imposter on all social media handles. And if you guys want us to talk about any different topics or anything of that nature, just shoot us a DM at Counterpoise Podcast on Instagram or YouTube, even Facebook as well. So we'll be sure to get back with you guys, and appreciate y'all. Thank you. And we are out of this thing unless Sam has something else to say.
Yeah, y'all just make sure y'all pray for Everett. He is on vacation, so we want him to have a blessed and
Let's pray for Everett. Safe travels, safe return.
Yeah, all of that. So thank y'all again for tapping in with us. We love y'all. We thank y'all. And we absolutely appreciate y'all. With that, we hope you have a wonderful week. Be safe and be good to one another.
All right, guys. Peace.